One of my favorite tweets of all time is the Radiohead tweet that reads, Radiohead is literally just Coldplay for dudes that sit on their balls and their balls go into their butt and they have to go to the hospital to fart out their balls. See, the tweet's funny, but it's also kind of true. The other day I was just talking to my friends about some music and I thought about this tweet and I was like, I should just have my friends give me some albums to listen to and then make a scale derived on this tweet. So that's how I got to the idea for this video, but the real question is, how do we define parameters to really apply this to all music? What does sitting on their balls, having them go in their butt and then having to go to the hospital to fart them out really mean? What does that really, what's that say about a person? What behavior does that insinuate? And how do we make a scale? So I put some work in. I did some logical reasoning, and I'll say it like this: if we take it in order and we point to sit on their balls and their balls go into their butt, I think it infers a level of intention along with an ability to prevent this before it's really a problem. So the problem is one of their own design and a lack of self-awareness for their condition. This action is being followed by them, have to go to the hospital and fart out their balls. So that really casts another layer of blame on, the person doing it, which is themselves. So the action of going to the hospital to get assistance from another source to a problem that, they can only solve themselves because they got to fart it out in the end is, it just adds another layer of disappointment from like an outside observer. So the disappointment lies in, the lack of their own self-awareness in the first place to prevent this incoming problem, and a lack of, internal action to improve and, save their own condition without outside, redundancy and motivation. This culminates in, a self-loathing message and a disingenuousness that kind of lingers around this hypothetical person. They cause their own issues and don't introspectively try to change anything about themselves to, help themselves. And they rely on other people to solve their problems for them. Ultimately, having to do it themselves at the very end of the day because they're the only ones who could in the first place. So from that, here's our criteria. We have moping and self-loathing. I think that's very important. Disingenuousness to a subject matter. Pretty much, you just don't believe it. You just don't believe what they're saying. And a lack of accountability in the music themselves. And I think the way to evaluate the music is, based on instrumental direction and sound for, part of it, and then, mostly lyrical content and how it's said. So with these three references, I think we can, cast a pretty wide net that really applies to pretty much anything and is pretty true to what the tweet itself says, our source material. Radiohead being the poster boy for this shit is, I think it's reflected in our criteria pretty well. So here's our scale. On one end, we have Radiohead, and on the other hand, we have AI Youngboy 2, which is characterized by slapping your nuts on somebody's grandmother's forehead. I feel that that's a appropriate opposite end of our spectrum from sitting on your balls. It's equally ridiculous. It's loud. It's ignorant, and with 50% as our dead middle, let's get into some work. To start us out, we have "Is This It" by The Strokes. Being transparent, I've listened to this before, and it has been a while, but I'm not without prior reservations towards the music. And, with a band as popular as the Strokes are, it's kind of hard to not have some sort of preconceived notion about it. Personally, I'm just not a huge fan of, the consistent things across their work from, a lot of it has to do with, the muffled, shitty microphone vocal adjustment and the general dampened sound that a lot of their stuff has. That's this, kind of nostalgia bait. I just don't like it. But I see how some people do, and, that's for you. It's not for me. To me, it's $30 burger, no free fries music, and, the burger's called a handheld. Sonically, this album just doesn't do that much different from song to song, and if you aren't paying attention, it's just gonna sound like 11 of the same song. And it's not that it's bad, it's just that if you want some sort of variety, you're just not gonna find it here, and that's the truth. I think I should stop here to kind of, mention some public perception about the Strokes specifically. It's quote unquote male manipulator music, and while it's a dumb buzzword to make a joke about the general theme of this type of music and who listens to it, it's very much in line with sitting on your balls and then having to go in your butt and go to the hospital to fart them out. The basic breakdown of male manipulator music, to me at least, is that it's shit that guys who are emotionally abusive try and listen to make them seem softer and more sensitive. And this archetype of music is generally, kind of whiny, mopey, catchy music that has a, woe is me direction to it. This parallels bits and pieces of the sit on your balls music style for sure. I mean, Radiohead is one of those bands that gets included in every single male manipulator Spotify playlist that every 15-year-old has ever made. So, there's some stuff that's in common. Here's where I think the two differ though. For male manipulator music, I think there's a certain sound to it. There's that pop influence that makes it kind of smooth and widely presentable to a lot of people. It's easy to listen to. For sitting on your balls and having them go all the way up your ass, that's not required. Our hypothetical male manipulator doesn't really care for the music, but he cares more for the cloak it drapes over his character. And, undoubtedly, Is a Sit by the Strokes is music for a guy who's going to sit down in his chair and his balls will be parallel up his ass immediately. But he may not be going to the hospital to fart him out. He may have just enough wherewithal to fart him out himself. Let me break it down for you. Beginning with the overall sound, the general distortion on fucking everything, along with the vocals, cultivates this low definition sound that kind of lets you be loud without actually having to be loud. None of the instrumental is very heavy, but it comes out as very muddy, self-conscious, and insecure. This general reservation is contrasted by the lead vocalist screaming for no reason on every single track, while somehow still never being louder than the instrumental is. Screaming or whining in my ear on every track is quintessentially fart out your balls music behavior. And the lyrical content is very much in line with what the sound generates. Much of the music feels accusatory. It's pointing a finger at others while demonstrating nothing but lethargy from the one telling the story. I'll run through some examples. From the song Barely Legal. Quote, "Come on, listen to what I say. I have some secrets that'll make you stay. I just want to turn you down. I just want to turn you around. Oh, you ain't never had nothing I wanted. But I want it all. I just can't figure it out. And I just want to misbehave. I just want to be your slave. Oh, you ain't never had nothing I wanted. But I want it all. I just can't figure it out. First, you can't be an indie rock band and talk about being a slave. Second, saying you don't want anything to do with a woman, and then the next line talking about giving her back shots, and then the line after saying that you've got secrets that'll make her stay is some pretty OD manipulation. From the hit single off this album, Sometimes, I'd like to highlight, quote, "You say you want to stay by my side. Darling, your head's not right. See, alone we stand, together we fall apart. Yeah, I think I'll be alright. I'm working so I won't have to try so hard. Tables they turn sometimes." This deprecative wording shoves the blame off of them for, a failing relationship, while also saying, I don't really want to work to change anything. And fuck it, something will happen. From Alone, Together, we have, quote, "Things changed in such a permanent way. Life seems unreal. Can we go back to your place? Oh, you drink too much. It makes me drink just the same." this might be the best example of what I'm talking about. Damn. Shit's crazy. Can I fuck though? And, again, this sense of accountability being pushed onto others that's, in so many more places throughout the album. It's a constant theme that, shoves them deep into the sit on your balls and have them go all the way up your ass and then going to the hospital and farting them out range. But what pulls them out slightly is that you never really get the impression that our storyteller gives a fuck. The message is manipulative, accusatory, and lethargic responsibility-wise, but it's kind of offset by showing very little self-pity and generally just, not giving a fuck. I think taking all this into consideration, I'm gonna stick it with a nice 80% to start us off. So with our first entry done, I'm just gonna move to how I listen to them in order, which brings us to Ramona by Kill Bill the Rapper. I don't really know what to say about this album other than quit it. I think I've had enough of white anime-inspired rappers for the year at this point. Maybe my entire lifetime, maybe my kid's entire lifetime. I just can't stand the antics to it. If you are a white anime-inspired rapper, I don't want to hear anything from you about carrying hip-hop. You're not. I don't need you in your lyric page explaining your own double entendre when it was hours/hours, like time. Shit was ass. I don't need you sniffing your own farts talking about how ill you are. You aren't. And, you would think when I say white anime-inspired rapper, I'd be mad at, just constant dog shit references that don't belong anywhere. But, there just isn't that many, thankfully. Same thing with shitty video game references. But the thing I constantly found myself complaining about is the obsession of some lyrical miracle hip-hop shit. You can't do the lyrical miracle hip-hop shit for the fun of it and then say, quote, "You don't want to talk about these bars with me." Everybody does. You can't call yourself the bore, ever. The more I find myself saying, "What?" while listening to an album, the less likely I am to say anything good about it. And one last, most important thing. For the love of God, please stop talking about how much weed you smoke. How many bongs you light, how much reefer you're blowing. I don't fucking care, and you sound like a dork. Maybe if I listened to this in 2014 when it was released, I wouldn't be so annoyed, but holy fuck, shut up. Like, I think roughly just after this will be released, I'll have like a little clip compilation of me live listening to most of these albums, and this shit is egregious. This is gonna be half the video is me listening to this album. Getting into the fart out your balls kind of analysis for this, sonically, I'm fine with it. It's very, mid 2010s hip hop. It's kind of lo-fi, and most of the sample work's fine. The beats are in no way offensive, and there's some decent variety to it. Nothing super aggressive. It's all laid back, and it's kind of the same with the vocals. Nothing really feels out of place, but man, there is some bitching going on this album. And whoever Rev is a fucking loser. He is the sole contributor to the most flagrant offense on this whole album. His verse on Abandoned 2 is some of the most mopey, embarrassing shit I've ever listened to in my whole life. Y'all keep saying I think so dark, so enlighten me. Shut the fuck up. It's not like I don't get the point of the verse, but like it sounds like he got taken, flipped upside down, and shaken for his lunch money before coming to the studio. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Uh, it's the lowest point on the whole album for me. And, most of the rest of the stuff is fine and nowhere near the point of being self-loathing or feeling half-hearted, really. Or anything that would, push it down the line towards, sitting on your balls, farting them out. There isn't much to quote that would matter for this scale either. Nothing is really bringing it towards slapping your nuts on your grandma's face, and however much some of the lyrics piss me off, and the 25 other fucking issues I have with it, on this scale, it's a 60%. And, that's alright. That's fine. But now we're really gonna get into some tough sledding. Because we have When We Were Friends by the Backseat Lovers. I'll start with this. Everything I say after this sentence will not sound like I hold the opinion I'm about to drop. I think this is good music. But let's get into it. First, instrumentally, there is enough variety to hold some attention and not make me bored listening to it, unlike Is This It by The Strokes. Instead of 11 of the same song, we got 3 of 3 songs. So, that's fine. It's an album after all. There's going to be common things among each track. But the one instrumental thing I can't let go without saying something about it is that on their most popular song, they just ripped the Two Door Cinema Club What You Know intro. To me, that's crazy. That's lazy, nasty perversion. And that's OD that's their most popular song. That's crazy. It doesn't even make sense in the song. It's like after a fucking beat change and they go to an instrumental. Why? Why is it there? Anyways, other than that, most of it's upbeat, and when it's slower, it's not really heavy or anything like that. The sound is very indie pop rock with various hints of other genres. Some emo stuff, some Coldplay shit, some shoegaze stuff, etc. Again, it's good music. But holy fuck, I can't listen to this guy wail and cry and bitch and moan about literally everything for another 37 minutes of my life. I can't do it. It's every song for the whole song. When the song is faster and up-tempo, he's bitching. When the song is slow and mellow, he's moping around and shaking his fist at the world. I don't need to hear you beg on your knees like a pussy for some chick to not make out with some dude at a pool party. I don't need you talking about a 19-year-old girl with a nose ring and a fake ID, while you got a beanie on that doesn't cover your ears, long hair, and a mustache, and your drummer's in a Chris Chan cosplay. If it's not some sort of middle school drama, the rest of the time the music just kind of comes off as embarrassing. A song like Dugout doesn't make me relate to you, it just makes me roll my eyes in disgust. A song like Davy Crochet is a soy hymnal where a guy wants to hear about her bad day and teach her how to laugh and snuggle up to her and learn how to crochet. You sound like a loser. And it's all just for the sake of making sad loser music for the sake of making sad loser music. Sure, the guy's supposedly torn up about it, but I never felt it come off that way. And if you're gonna be sad, I never want to hear you doing some fucking melodic bullshit at the end of a song. Like this. It's disingenuous. Fucking play into it for the love of God. Be depressed, be heartbroken, scream your fucking lungs out, but you better play the part. It never feels like the part is being played. It's an elementary school play version of heartbreak. And you can't play both sides and be the good guy in both, like in Maple Syrup. Don't get in my ear whispering, "Did it hurt when I kicked you to the curb?" and then say, "I guess I'm all alone." You don't get to do that. Especially not when you talk about sniffing her clothes afterwards. The whole thing is a definition of self-loathing, and it's embarrassing to listen to. This is genuinely worse than Radiohead ever is about this shit. Like it to me, this is breaking the scale. It wholeheartedly earns an 125%. The listeners have sat down, their balls have breached the sanctity of their asshole, and have started to fucking mesh and synthesize with their anal cavity. They will never see the light of day again. They lost them. Their balls are gone. It's full-on musical castration. And so, after the Backseat Lovers, I decided I'm gonna listen to something that isn't gonna piss me off. So let's listen to The Stranger by Billy Joel. And for this album, there's not really much to say for this video. I mean, it's Billy Joel. There's a couple love songs, there's a couple iconic songs like Only the Good Die Young and Moving Out, etc. You get the point. Nothing is whiny, the songs are generally accountable and sweet, and the music is just good. There's nothing for me to knock it to either side by much. The given advice in whatever song and the overall message is sound and responsible and shown in a logical way. It probably swings under 50%, but there's nothing for me to really push it much further than like a 45 or a 55 on each way. So I'll just leave it at 50. It's a great album though. After Billy Joel, I went to bed for the day. And the next day I decided, let's listen to the country album I was recommended. Dallas Fort Worth by Drake Milligan. I'll preface this, I'm not a country fan. And for the second time in a row, there's not really much to talk about. This album, to a non-country listener, and someone who, me, is, pretty critical of the genre at times. I don't really like it a lot. This kind of just sounds like the mean, average, popular, good country music in like a public perception. I really felt like I'd pretty much heard every song on the album at some place in my life at some point, regardless of them actually being that song. And that's probably just my ignorance to the genre, but I'll be genuine about it. This didn't make me any more or less of a fan of country. I think the exact same of it now. I mean, there's some slower country love songs like She. There's some sadder songs like Hearts Don't Break Even, and there's some fun upbeat songs like Bad Day to Be a Beer. But to me, it never reaches any extreme where I notice anything crazy and kind of stays consistent throughout. When he loves his woman, he loves his woman. When the fish are biting, it's a bad day to be a beer. It's all, logical is a word I've used earlier, but the music is just kind of good, and it's, certainly not ball farty. And there's just not much to talk about. I can point to things, but it won't really do any, effective judgment. I have no irks or complaints. I got nothing. I'm just gonna give it a nice 25%. It's confident, it sounds fine, and, it's good. After Dallas Fort Worth, I didn't listen to anything else that day because I was doing some other shit. But the next day, I came back and went to Hot Fuss by The Killers. Again, this is an album like Is This It that I had listened to previously at some point, but I didn't really remember being particularly impressed with it, and really didn't remember too much either. Obviously, one of the biggest songs, maybe ever, Mr. Brightside, is on this album, but other than that, I couldn't remember anything else that was on here. I forgot that Somebody Told Me was a song, but other than that, I don't think anything else will be sticking with me for the foreseeable future. And, nothing really impressed me at all on the second time listening to it. Musically, some of the tracks have a bit of that, the Strokes vocal distortion that I really don't like, but it's not as bad. There are some weird sections of songs, like in All These Things That I've Done, where we have holistic group chanting of I've got a soul, but I'm not a soldier. Sometimes he has the world's worst auto-tune on ad-libs and background stuff. I don't get it. Sometimes the mix is in, one ear, like in Andy, You're a Star. Also for that song, close the yearbook, man. It's embarrassing. Just no indie rock band needs to be making this many 5-minute songs. And we certainly don't need to be talking about looking up girls' skirts. I feel like The Killers is the favorite band of some fat 38-year-old woman with a divorce and a kid that really likes going to amusement parks that you only see at like a local grocery store. Who, maybe has like a random streak of color in their ear, maybe some like, thin, like $15 hoop earrings they got from fucking some department store. Maybe a flower tattoo on their shoulder blade back here. You know the type of person. Specifically about Hot Fuss though, there's just some stuff I don't like. Musically, there's a lot of variety and nothing really sounds the same on the album, which I can't appreciate, especially after listening to what I've listened to so far. But to me, it's not impressive, and I don't really like most of it. Of course, Mr. Brightside is an iconic song, but to me, it's also a song I don't want to hear that many times in a month. I find some of the shit just kind of annoying to listen to. I mean, some songs come off as sleazy, some are lame and corny. A song like Glamorous Indie Rock and Roll should never be made. Ever. Even if it's drenched in irony or dead serious. Don't make that song. Smile Like You Mean It, Change Your Mind, and Midnight Show are just kind of nasty to me and not in a good way. Mr. Brightside's a cuck chair song, and a lot of the songs are just begging women for some sort of emotional attachment. I'll drop some particularly stinky lyrics from a fart on your balls standpoint. From Smile Like You Mean It, we have, quote, and someone will drive her around the same streets that I did. From Change Your Mind, the refrain is, if the answer is no, can I change your mind? From Midnight Show, quote, you got a real short skirt, I wanna look up, look up, look up. From Glamorous Indie Rock and Roll, make it up, break it up, what do you care? It's indie rock and roll for me. Not all the lyrics are like this remarkably bad, but, the look up your skirt one is insanity. The shit's just generally whack though. And I just don't even really want to talk about it that much more. I just didn't really like this album. I'm just, it's not particularly mopey or self-loathing, but man, it's just lackluster. I'm giving it a 70% and moving on. Lastly, we have Selected Works, 1994 to 1996 from The Wax Doctor. This is a jungle/atmospheric drum and bass album. So the question is, how do we gauge a jungle/atmospheric drum and bass album? I mean, I don't have lyrics to reference or analyze. That's like 70% of what I'm basing stuff off gone. So we have nothing but pure instrumentation and sampling to work with. I've written about this personally before, but I think the purely instrumental music can do a better job at conveying emotions than regular music can. Most of the time more powerfully as well. I think that the lack of a traditional storyteller in the form of a vocalist doesn't take away from the ability to convey an emotion, but does strip down maybe some of the complexity of it. Here's what I mean. Take a regular sad sounding song about, let's say, someone being broken up with and them being sad about it. With a vocalist, you can tell a specific story with the details intact, but it can be really over any type of instrumentation. I mean, it can be some boom bap rap shit. It can be a jazz song, a pop song, shoegaze, any genre or sound archetype really. It can be slow, it can be fast, it can be happy, it can be sad. It doesn't matter. It can sound misguided, sure, but the content itself is still the same. When you have nothing but an instrumental, you don't have the power of words to tell someone what to think about or what to feel. I mean, for a genre like jazz, which is synonymous with self-expression and creativity, it's incredible because no one's saying anything with their words. It's all on how they're playing their instruments at a fundamental level. The instrumental becomes what's talking to us and guiding us to feel something. And a lot of time it's better at painting an emotion because you can trust it more. It doesn't lie to you or you feel like it's lying or not being genuine, how a vocalist sometimes can. It can't tell you the same story, but it can capture any emotion the same, if not better, because it leaves it up to you to fill in the blanks. It makes you feel the music, not the other way around. If you don't believe that the guy who's singing about his bitch ex-girlfriend really hates his fucking life, the song doesn't really fucking mean anything to you. It doesn't make you feel anything except disgust. I think a great example of specifically how electronic music can be so emotional is this album by Venetian Snares. Yes, there are technically words in it, but it's all orchestral samples and it creates this powerful, drowning, dystopian, stressful atmosphere that really is a special listen. Finally getting to selected works by Wax Doctor. The musical landscape is very soft and mellow. The percussion is hollow and tame while maintaining the typical breaks of the form that you see in, atmospheric drum and bass and jungle. The synths are very lofty, flowy, and kind of reverberate above everything. The bass is sometimes guitar, but more that dub-style bass that jungle is known for, but it stays under everything while staying, heavy and substantial and punchy. There are some additional samples used for leads, ranging from some harmonicas to saxophones to pianos to regular synth leads. All stay mellow and light, and it comes together as harmonic and tranquil. It's not hectic, but there's movement to it. It's like a light jog on a countryside trail. There's a pace to maintain, but you end up more concerned with the beauty of your surroundings than getting anywhere. I think that steady lightheartedness pushes it below 50%, but I'm not really sure how low to go. It's kind of hard to determine. I'm just going to stick it at 40. And here's our list. I mean, obviously at our lowest end is Drake Milligan's Dallas Fort Worth, and Off in the Ether is When We Were Friends by the Backseat Lovers. I don't know, this was fun idea to work on. That's kind of all I got for now. If you want to see me do something like this again, just let me know. Because honestly, this shit is fun. Trying to criticize something with, a fucking just ridiculous set of variables and criteria is enjoyable to do. Everything I'm saying is halfway a joke anyways.